My recording on. Vamos a empezar. We'll start our recording for those who cannot come tonight. We'll do a lot of follow-up on that subjunctive practice. We're going to do some videos on that as well. We'll make sure we make time for our destinos because we are behind this week on doing the walkthroughs on that. So we're going to try to fit everything in. I do want to open with something that's just kind of fun. I would not say useless information, but just fun information. You know, fun phrases you can throw around, kind of information. So nothing like formal structures, but actually I can attest, I think every single one of these he has, it's like, oh yeah, lots of people say that. Lots of people say that. So he's absolutely right. But this is kind of a fun one we'll have. And he'll call them chunks because they're phrases to use.
60 seconds, 5 Spanish chunks that natives say all the time, and that'll make you sound like a real Latino. ¿Listo? 1 es pan comido, literally eaten bread. When something is really easy, basically a piece of cake. Number 2, me da igual, means whatever. Número
Me da igual, I don't care.
Gordo, someone is falling fat, meaning that you don't like them.
Yeah, me cae gordo, yeah, is the I don't like them because they fall on you fat. Whoop.
Number 4, se cree la muy. She thinks too much of herself, or in Spanish, much. Number 5, él metió la pata. He has screwed up.
And meter la pata literally means to stick your foot in it. But it's not really referring to your mouth. It's like, you know, stepping into a pile of poop kind of thing. Yeah, that more kind of that idea. Whoop, I got a couple people waiting to get in. So those are very fun things. Meter la pata es muy importante. That is a biggie. To screw up, to mess it up, put in the paw. Pata is a foot, but it's an animal foot. So anytime you want to talk about the leg of an animal or the foot of an animal, they call that pata. They don't. So, you know, pierna is leg, but if you want to talk about an animal's leg, it's pata. You want to talk about an animal's foot, it's pata. So meter la pata is stick your foot in it. To misstep big time. Yeah. Okay. In my usual cruising on the web, which I do way too much of, but I do it because I always wind up, you know, you never know when they're going to release that one video. And here's one that came out literally today, I believe. And this is on subjunctive. Yay! So we're going to take a look at this. This one's a little bit longer. It's more like 5-ish minutes. I'm sure there's some shameless self-promotion somewhere in there that we'll skip through. But you'll see a lot of examples with it. And then we're going to go straight into some, you know, our practice. So if you have a printout of that page that we started to work last week, but I did add-ons for it. Make sure you kind of shuffle around for that information in the next few minutes here, but we're going to take a look at this because every time you see more examples, it's always helpful, especially with something like this. We just don't have good examples in English or anything good that correlates with subjunctive because English does a variety of different things, but none of them are the same to express those same ideas they use subjunctive for. So here they're going to give us some helpful.
Creo que debemos hacer algún vídeo sobre el subjuntivo. ¿Qué piensas, Harry?
Pero Carla, ¿segura? ¿No es un tema aburrido?
Pues no, Harry, no es un tema aburridísimo. Y es que es más, es súper necesario para hablar bien español. Yo había pensado que hoy podíamos hablar solamente de cómo se expresan los deseos en subjuntivo. A ver, ¿tú qué sabes tanto? ¿Me podías expresar tus deseos en subjuntivo?
Bueno, subjuntivo de deseos, dices. Muy fácil, ¿no?
Sí, claro, con el subjuntivo con ojalá, esperar, desear, querer.
So you'll notice those are verbs you've started to see.
Hazme una frase.
Un ejemplo. Yo, pues fácil. Ok. Espero que puedas.
En el Super Easy Spanish de hoy vamos a ver cómo se usa el subjuntivo para expresar deseos, cómo se usa la expresión de los deseos en diferentes tiempos y cuál es la forma del subjuntivo.
So you'll see some different tenses. We might fast forward through a few of those, but anything that's in present subjunctive we'll take a look
¿Estáis
at.
listos? Vamos. Cuando queremos expresar deseos, usamos verbos como esperar, querer, desear o tener ganas.
Okay, now, esperar, querer, desear means to desire something. So it's an equivalent to querer. Tener ganas de is to feel like, to have an intense desire of somebody doing something. So you notice anytime, you know, we can give you a list of verbs, but you know, there are always things we can add on that indicate wanting something. So these will never be all-inclusive kind of lists. These are what we call triggers. These things you see at the bottom of the screen. They are what they traditionally call a trigger, meaning that when a sentence starts with this, it tags on a new clause with K, and then it switches to a different human being, right? Somebody wants somebody else to do something. That verb of wanting or desiring or wishing for something becomes what they call the trigger. Okay, it's setting up the need to use a not in reality time verb and subjunctive later on.
Ganas de. Muy importante. Cuando tenemos el mismo sujeto en ambas frases, usaremos infinitivo.
Now, this is an important thing she just said. When you use the same human being in both parts of the sentence, then we don't go into subjunctive ever. Well, most of the time. there are some kind of isolated examples you could do, but when you've got the same human being, then that setup for the subjunctive is really, really unlikely. They'll use the infinitive instead. So listen for the example she's going to give.
Por ejemplo, yo quiero conseguir un nuevo trabajo.
Quiero conseguir un nuevo trabajo. I want to get a new job. I am the one who wants to get the job. If I want my kid to get a job, then that get is subjunctive, right? If I want somebody else to get a job. But if I want to do this action, then there's no change in subject. I don't have two separate people. So when that kind of thing happens, when we stay with just the one human being, it's verb and infinitive, like that two verb setup you learned a long time ago, right? Quiero conseguir, I want to get.
Mientras
So, pregunta.
Oh, sí, dime.
Okay, how would you say I want my son to get a job then? If it
Quiero que mi hijo consiga un trabajo.
okay.
Now I've got two different human beings. I want my kid to get this job. Quiero que mi hijo, second person, consiga un trabajo. But quiero conseguir, I want to get a job. I'm the one who wants something and I want to get it. There's no change in that human being. It's the same person. And very, 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 very seldom can that set up a subjunctive.
So, and what I just heard you say is that mi hijo is kind of in between the K and the subjunctive. It's not always K subjunctive. That's not.
Actually, I had set it up ahead of time before I even saw this video that we were going to look into this thing of, you know, watch out. Sometimes if you've got two people, you've got subjunctive, but if you only have one person, it's going to be the verb and infinitive, two verbs working together. Yeah.
Right.
And so it depends on what you're saying. It depends on how many subjects you got in the sentence. And we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
We are going to kind of break that down today.
Sujetos diferentes, aquí sí usaremos el subjuntivo. Espero que Harry consiga un nuevo trabajo.
So that's the exact same thing as I want my kid to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just putting a different name in there. Espero que, and okay, instead of I want, I hope that, which is still a desire, right? Espero que Harry consiga. I am the one who has this desire for somebody else to do something. Okay.
Vamos a ver más ejemplos. Llevo todo el día cocinando. Espero que no se haya quemado.
I hope it hasn't burned. It's the food that's cooking. I hope the food hasn't burnt. Okay.
Simba no quiere que le metamos en la cazuela.
Simba doesn't want us to put him in the pot. Simba doesn't, and not wanting is the same thing, you know, wanting, it still falls in that desire category, even though it's a non-desire, doesn't want. No quiere que le metamos, that we put him inside the pot. Simba is the one who wants, and he wants that we should not do something.
No tengo ganas de subir tantas escaleras.
I don't feel like going up so many steps. I don't feel like doing this myself. I don't want to be the one going up. Okay, so it's all about me all the way. So verb and subir, infinitive.
Ah, Harry, ¿quieres que te lleve una?
Want me to bring you one? Do you want that I should do this?
Sí, por favor.
¿Quieres que te la abra?
Do you want me to open it for you?
Wow, gracias.
¿Y quieres que te la ponga en el vaso?
And do you want me to put it in a glass? ¿Quieres? Do you want? Que te la ponga. And she left out the yo. Because at this point, from context, hey, do you want me to get you the bottle? Do you want me to bring it to you? Do you want me to put it in a glass? So we really won't bother with the yo. ¿Quieres que te la ponga? That I put it for you in un vaso. Okay?
Perfecto.
Qué suerte tienes.
How lucky you are.
Que disfrutes.
Oh, que disfrutes. May you enjoy it. We left out the I hope you. Sometimes this happens a lot. It might start with que, and that means we left out the desire. I hope you enjoy it. I'm happy that you'll enjoy it, you know, whatever, but there's some kind of a wish or a desire that we just left off. And we say, may you enjoy it, which sounds really fun in English. You would never say, may you enjoy it. You would say, drink up, you know, salud. Have fun with that, enjoy
Or
it.
just enjoy.
Yeah, but the que tells you that this is a subjunctive coming.
Y es que en los ejemplos lo hemos visto muy claro. En la frase no tengo ganas de subir las escaleras usábamos el infinitivo porque el sujeto era yo. Mientras que en el ejemplo del gato, él no quiere que lo metamos nosotros en la cazuela. ¿Y cómo se conjuga el presente de subjuntivo? Pues muy fácil, te dejamos una tabla aquí para que veas ese cambio vocal.
And I'm going to make sure that you see where the table is in your book, en el libro. And, you know, make sure that you just go over that more to get more comfortable with it, because they put a lot of things in tables to make it easier for you to see right away what they will look like in a great big block.
Vocálico, Pero obviamente tenemos algunos verbos irregulares. Mi consejo, que te aprendas los más comunes. Por ejemplo, ir, vaya, ser, sea o tener, tenga. Estoy aquí escribiendo los ejercicios de la comunidad en Patreon y tengo ganas de que os gusten un montón. Si aún no sabes lo que es
Okay,
Patreon,
so
te
here's
invito
a shameless self-promotion Patreon because people are,
Un montón de
everybody's on Patreon or some other thing.
información aquí arriba.
Okay.
Wow, Carla, mucho mejor, la verdad. Pero debo decir que ojalá que sea español.
Ojalá que. Here's our first example in this video of ojalá que, hopefully. And there really is no verb in that. There's no verb like quiero. Ojalá is not a verb, it's just ojalá. It's always ojalá. It does not change form ever. It's just ojalá, ojalá que. And some people will drop the que after ojalá and just say ojalá sea español. You can either use ojalá with a que or without. People do either.
Y que no tenga que aprender tantas cosas.
Uy, Harry, me temo que aún tenemos que explicar algo más. Con el ojalá también expresamos deseos. ¿Qué pasa? No solo con presente de indicativo. Usamos ojalá más imperfecto de subjuntivo cuando expresamos un deseo prácticamente imposible.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple examples of this, but I don't expect you to use this yet because this is a much more complicated verb to form. Ojalá can be used with present subjunctive. It is also frequently used with what they call a past subjunctive, although they have a different term for it in Spanish. And when that happens, we're talking about kind of hypothetical situations, things that really aren't happening at all. It's going way out into la la land. We'll see what they
En tu
mean.
caso, me deberías haber dicho, ojalá fuera o fuese español y no tuviera o tuviese que aprender tanto.
Yeah. If only I were, if only I were. Kind of like saying that in English. Okay. Ojalá fuera. And then they've got a different verb fuese, which is sometimes used in Spain, but not in Latin America. Ojalá fuera español y no tuviera.
Tantas cosas. Mientras que cuando hablamos de un deseo que es más probable, sí podemos usar presente de subjuntivo. Por ejemplo, ojalá vaya pronto a verte al Reino Unido. Hola, una pregunta. ¿Han dicho ya quién ha ganado las elecciones?
Todavía no.
Ojalá lo dijesen pronto. Está todo el mundo muy preocupado. Bueno, gracias. Pero cuidado, no solamente utilizamos el imperfecto de subjuntivo, que tiene dos formas, cantara o cantarse, cuando hablamos con ojalá sobre cosas que son prácticamente imposibles. También cuando hablamos de deseos del pasado. Vamos a ver un ejemplo.
And actually, we'll stop there because you don't need to say too many of the past subjunctives because that will become kind of overwhelming. That's a more difficult verb to form, much harder than the present subjunctive. Although we have some things that correlate, some in English with past subjunctive. But para que sepan, just so you know, if you want to take a quick gander, one good thing that this book does for you, one good thing is that if you go on into page 207, 207, from there on the next, I want to say maybe 4 pages, they have tables and tables of common subjunctive forms, all kinds of common subjunctive forms until you get to 212, 212. Actually they start on 206, 206, 207, 208, 209, 210, 211, and stop at 211. So if you kind of want to take a gander through and say, what do these things look like? They show you how they start with a yo form and then go into formation of the present subjunctive. So it's helpful for you to see at a real quick eye glance what happens and how we start with that yo form and why we start with that yo form. You see the dishes verbs on page 210, but on let's say 208 through 209, you start to see, oh, you know, stem changes. Those will happen in subjunctive because we start with the yo form, we ditch the O, and then we use the opposite ending. AR verbs get a kind of endings, ER and IR verbs get type endings. But you start to see, oh, why it's important not to skip that step of start with yo. Yo itself is not the subjunctive. It is just the form we use as a home base. Okay. If you start with the yo form, you won't go wrong. Drop the O, use the opposite vowel ending. So they give you a lot of examples and you see why you start with yo, because you've got lots of irregular things in yo and lots of the go verbs for the yo form, which will keep that go format in the subjunctive. And you see all the stem changes, and then they do the little dishes verbs on 210. So it's super helpful just to kind of start to get a feel for what those look like. So you may want to try just pronouncing those from the tables on your own, like to yourself. Talk to yourself. Sure, why not? ¿Por qué no? Yeah, to get used to how that sounds, to get used to how it sounds. I would even suggest when you look at some of those tables, take your phone and record yourself just saying a few of those and play yourself back and see if you can hear yourself saying that opposite vowel at the end correctly. If you use, it might be hard for you to, it might be hard for you to think of yourself, you know, I can't really hear myself saying it, but if you actually record yourself and then play it back, you'll hear, am I saying the vowel correctly at the end of that new and odd, it sounds wrong, subjunctive formation. So it's maybe a little tool that might help you just to kind of check your pronunciation there. Okay. Bueno, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Any other kind of question on that before we kick off with some practice on how to form subjunctive or why we use it? There are many reasons why we use it. We're just using verbs of desire right now and ochala, verbs of wishing, verbs of wanting, verbs of hoping, okay? And we're getting into some verbs of suggesting, okay? So before we do our practice, but I want to give you a moment to look for that if you have it printed off as a second page, or a moment to actually pull it up as a second screen if that's what you prefer to do. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick look at what this thing of weirdo is, because the weirdo thing, oops, pardon, the weirdo thing is just an acronym. It's it's a mnemonic device to help you remember for, you know, what kinds of verbs eventually we'll call up subjunctive. And we're going to start it up here above the weirdo acronym at first, because what you need first in to create subjunctive is you need a verb that belongs to what we're going to show down here below is called weirdo. Okay, our mnemonic device to remember what kinds of verbs are going to do this. But the other situation we need besides a weirdo verb in the first clause is that in order to use subjunctive, and you're going to notice this is not 100% of the time because she said que disfrutes and she just used que disfrutes. So, okay, you won't always have two clauses, but subjunctive usually uses two clauses. What does that mean to use two clauses? It means too many sentences. Too many sentences. The reason we have subjunctive usually is because we've got too many sentences, two ideas that are joined together with a little word, okay? A clause is a little sentence within a sentence. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a person number one, and he's going to do a verb. He's going to be doing a verb that is from the weirdo list. Person number one is going to be doing some verb, using some verb from the weirdo list. And that's the first clause, right? I want, I recommend, I suggest, I insist, I hope, I wish. All those things fall into the weirdo list. So person number one is going to be doing a verb that falls into the weirdo list. We're generally going to now need this word K. This word K is going to be a connector. It is going to be pulling in the second clause. It's going to be joining, uniting the two clauses together. So after this little magical word K, then we're going to have person number two. In order to use subjunctive, we have to have a second, a different person, not the same person as person number one. I wish my kid would get a job. I want my kid to get a job. Literally becomes I want, it's from the weirdo list, that my kid, and now we're going to have a verb in subjunctive. That is the setup for the subjunctive. One person, K, is going to connect the new human being, a different human being, with a subjunctive idea. And the reason that second part with that second verb with person number two is subjunctive is that that action by person number two isn't really happening yet. It's not a part of the real world. My wanting or my hoping or my insisting or my demanding or my suggesting, that is a part of reality. But wanting somebody else to do it doesn't mean it's going to happen. So that second part is part of the world of not yet happening verbs, which isn't technically a tense. It is a mood. It is a mood because indicative, present or past, means really happening. But the subjunctive mood means, well, not really happening yet. It might not. We don't really know. And that's why that second verb goes into subjunctive. If I keep the same human being with two verbs, it's going to look more like this. Person, verb one, and infinitive. If I don't have a second human being, if I only have one person, and I want to use two verbs, it'll be verb and infinitive. Verb, I can swim. I want to eat. I insist on driving. But there's no change of subject. There's no change over into this person number two. So there's no reason to use subjunctive there. We have to have person number one, a verb from this weirdo list, and then a second new and different person. And that person is going to be joined into that subjunctive verb. Okay. Are we clear on that so far? I'm going to stop share just for a moment. Are we clear on that so far? Does that make sense? Yeah, right now? Okay.
So far, but I've got a quick question. Suppose you have an inanimate object. I ran into this as I was doing my homework here.
Es posible.
I want it to rain.
That is the person number two scenario. It just doesn't have a person.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
is, okay, that counts. Okay.
Yeah. I want it to rain. I can't rain. So, yeah. Espero, quiero que llueva. Quiero que llueva. And there is a famous song with that. I will find a YouTube of the famous song, Federico, and I will include it with it. There is honestly, there is a famous song with it. I wish it would rain coffee. It's a cultural thing. Anyway, yeah. I wish the bank would update this statement. Bank is not a human being, it's an institution, yeah. I wish this thing worked better.
Right.
It's not a thing, it's a thing, it's not a human being, but it may funcionar, right? So yeah, you can definitely have an inanimate object for that in that person number 2 category. Es muy posible. Es muy posible. Okay. Buena pregunta. Okay. Aquí vamos. Here we go. I've got to create a new. Okay. It will not let me go back to that. All right. We're going to kind of restate our weirdo here so we've got this laid out nicely. Okay. So now subjunctive needs the person number 1. And the verb that person is doing is generally, in most cases, have to fall into one of these categories. And this just helps us to remember what kinds of verbs will require the subjunctive. These are all called trigger verbs. And they are called trigger verbs because they're kind of a great big blinking red light. Attention, attention, warning Will Scott. Here's going to come subjunctive if you have another different human being. Okay, so the trigger verbs that are going to be in with person number 1 are going to be verbs of wanting or wishing. Verbs of emotion, I will be honest with you. These are kind of hard for English speakers to understand. You just have to see a lot of examples of them. This E category has lots and lots of different verbs. We're not even going to get into it probably for a really long time. I is impersonal phrases. And we may get into that, maybe a little bit today if we get time. If we don't do it this week, we'll probably do it later. These are actually pretty easy to use. Impersonal expressions. Okay, what do I mean by impersonal expressions? They all begin with es. They all begin with es, it's. Es bueno que, it's good that. Es malo que, it's bad that. Es imposible que, it's impossible. Es probable que, it's probable that. Es improbable que. So they're impersonal expression, meaning a human being isn't doing any of these things. We're saying it's a certain way. It's. Okay. IT apostrophe S. It is. Okay. Verbs of recommendation. And we're going to be using some of these in our examples today. Verbs of recommending. And those are really kind of easy to link to this idea of wishing or wanting. Because if you say, I recommend that, a recommendation is just kind of a softer pedal of wanting somebody to do something, right? So it's not really far out of the ballpark. Verbs of doubt. Well, I'm just going to write doubt in here. Verbs of doubt. That category is super, super hard for us to know. We're not going to talk about that in this segment at all, because that is the part that people generally, tend to have great difficulty with. And the very last one, and I've got to get my Spanish keyboard back. Bien. Okay. The very last one is the O of weirdo, and the O is ochala. Ochala. Ochala, which really replaces that person number 1 and the verb. Ay, uy, a ver. Wow, it did not let me go back. Perdón. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to the boxes with these. We'll retype these real fast. Oh, quizás no. No, will not let me go back. One of these days I will figure that out. Okay. Ochala is not technically a verb, right? Ochala is just ochala. It just stands by itself. Okay. Let me tell what kinds of verbs fill out these categories. Ah, he's still doing that. Doggone it. Okay, you get the idea. We'll put this in a better box.
Could you
Anyway.
can you control C, copy it and put it back in the box?
No, I don't
know.
think this, no, it does not let you do that.
Mm.
What I will do for you guys is I will put it into like a Google slide thing and I'll send it out to you, but you've got the idea. Okay. Muy bien. A ver, okay. Bueno, alguna pregunta, some kind of question? We're going to take a look at our, ooh, we need to stop that share. We're going to take a look at the setup we had from last week. So now we're going to take a look at this from last week. And I have my nice little dot line to show where we left off. Okay. We had examples last week. And let's make this a little bit bigger so you don't have to squint like crazy, right? Quiero que mi vecino, I want my neighbor to do something. Quiero que mi vecino no tenga los perros ruidosos. Espero que tú compres ese vestido. Mi familia quiere que yo venga a visitar. Mi esposo pide que yo maneje. Les digo a mis hijos 1000 veces que ellos se cepillen los dientes. ¿Quieres que nosotros sepamos el subjuntivo? Do you want us to know subjunctive? Okay. Bien. Y, vale. Okay. We're going to work on, I'm going to send you off into small groups. And we're going to work on some of these. These are going to use different triggers from that weirdo scenario. So for the subject number 1, that'll be, and we're going to look at, we'll look at 4 of these, 4. For el jefe, for, well, we've got estamos. No, we don't have estamos. We've got esperamos. Esperamos. We hope, right? El actor famoso espera. El médico recomienda. So we've got all verbs in these 7 through 10, 7 hasta 10. We've got all one human being in the first half of the sentence. That's the first clause. And the first clause, the first person uses a trigger type verb. The boss insists. We hope that. The famous actor hopes that. The doctor recommends. So I'm going to have you work on these. Recommends, advises, right? Any verbs like that will do it. Okay. A ver, and come up with some scenarios there. Does anybody need time to copy these 4 over or no? No? Okay. Vale, muy bien. Somos, ¿cuántos somos? How many people are we today? 3 y 4. Quizás 4. Maybe 4 rooms. Yep, that looks about good. Está bien. I'm going to give you some time and I'm going to try to pop into different rooms. But because we've got 4 of them, I'm going to give you more than 5 minutes. So after you get settled in and start working just a little bit, I'm going to try to pop into, I'll fill out 4 of those rooms for just a minute to see what kind of questions you might have. Está bien? And you should hit your join button. 10 minutos. Ok, a ver.
So I'll do hello.
Hola.
Hola.
I'll do number 7. El jefe insiste en que sus empleados lleguen al trabajo a las 8 en punto.
Ooh.
What time to come in?
Come to work, to go to work.
Bien. Sí,
Or
lleguen
arrive at work.
al trabajo. Lleguen al trabajo. Muy
Now,
bien.
Marilyn, is that spelled L-L-E-G-U-E-N?
It has a
just
funny spelling, yes. Lleguen, but to get to the ge sound, right?
Mhm.
Llegan, not subjunctive, llegan, just present
Right.
tense is G-A-N. But once I have G-E, I don't get the G sound anymore. So
Okay.
to get the G sound back, it becomes G-U-E, and that U
Okay.
then becomes silent. Muy
Okay.
buena pregunta, sí. But see, you said it perfectly correctly, llegan, with the right sound, but to spell that sound, it needs to be G-U-E.
Okay.
As long as you're saying it properly, it really doesn't matter.
Matter
'Cause,
how it's
you know, you're not
spelled,
going to write
right.
it down anyway. You'll write it down now, but yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
Llegan a tiempo, arrive on time.
Llegan a tiempo, muy bien.
Al tiempo, on time. Okay.
Maybe he wants them to finish their work, do their work.
Mhm.
Bien, you're on the right track.
Okay.
I will leave now, so I hop into another room quickly, okay?
Okay. Adios.
Okay.
How about Betsy number 8?
I have, well, cuando estamos en la autopista, esperamos que todos manejen con cuidado or
Marlene?
How are things going? ¿Hay preguntas?
Oh,
Hola.
we did 7 and 8.
And we're on 9. And el actor famoso espera que el público le guste su película.
Muy bien. And
The only difference I had from yours is nueva película. I didn't, did you say the new movie or no?
No, I didn't. I just said his
Okay.
movie.
Okay. I have su nueva.
And it would be al público, but that's okay because I've got it listed as el público. Que al público le guste. Sí, le guste. Le guste. Muy bien.
I had el actor famoso espera que el público lo entienda.
Oh, muy bien.
Is that right? Lo entiende? Okay, they
Lo
understand
entienda
it?
muy bien. Muy bien. Muy bien. Me gusta muchísimo. I like that a lot. Es excelente. Okay, you're doing great. I'm going to leave and pop into a different room. Muy bien, hola.
Hola.
¿Tienen preguntas o no?
No.
No, muy bien. Dame un ejemplo. Give me an example of what you're working on.
We're on número 10.
10, okay.
So, el médico recomienda que sus pacientes lavemos sus manos.
Se laven las manos. Se laven las manos.
¿Sí?
Se laven las manos. Muy bien.
Más
I
va.
had el médico recomienda que sus pacientes coman una dieta saludable.
Ah, coman una dieta saludable. Saludable es healthy.
Okay.
Saludable. Muy bien.
I have
Está bien.
el médico recomienda que sus pacientes toman todas sus pastillas.
Oh, toma. Oh, sí. Tomen, take.
Toman, yes.
Tomen.
Tomen.
Tomen todas
sus
pastillas. Pastillas or pills. Yeah.
Right. Like
Sí.
take all their medicine.
Muy bien. Exacto. Muy bien. Okay, I'm going to leave and pop into a different room so that I give them some time too. You guys are on mark here. We're doing okay.
Okay.
Hola.
Hi.
Want to see what kind of questions you might have?
Well, we're moving through it. I just realized I didn't do 9 right. Instead of using the word hope, I used wanted. I said el actor famoso esperar que el público queramos mirar todos sus películas.
Well, you could use queramos and just take out the el público. So you could say, so look, this makes sense as long as you say el actor famoso espera que queramos ver la película. The famous actor wants us to want to see it. Sí, se puede.
So
you can do that. You can tweak it.
It would be ver instead of mirar, though?
Probably ver, yeah, usually. Because watching a show, watching a program, watching a show, watching a play. Some people do use mirar, but most people I talk with use ver.
Okay. In Duolingo, it's mirar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not technically wrong, but I think it's more common for people who use ver with shows of any kind, whether it's live or taped.
Okay.
Okay. ¿Otra pregunta o no? Making sense?
Yeah, I think we're working through it. Donna, did you have any?
No, I think so.
No?
Okay.
No, it's just slow going, finding the infinitive, then the yo, then going backwards, and then never hearing the difference.
See,
So,
if you once you get comfortable, you won't have to start using the yo anymore. Because it will just sound right. But right now you do have to start with the yo.
And I noticed that I'm having a little bit of a retard with ser and a star.
Okay.
So for example, one of the ones I used was no estén carros lentos. And it's like, let's see, a star versus ser, I think it's a star type of thing. And I've used.
Just getting it, whether it's ser or estar?
Right. And
okay.
I found
Normal.
a couple other places, like on 15, 13 and 15, 9, 13, and 15, I also used one of the two. So it's like, yeah, I understand one's temporary and one's more, I get that, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I can figure it out, but.
Ser and estar is always a tough thing for English speakers because we just don't have the same kind of structures with that. So that's really normal to have difficulty with that. But, the forms of ser and estar are going to be pretty usual. Ser will have sea, seas, sea, seamos, sean. Estar will just use the e endings. Esté, estés, esté, estemos, estén. But whether you use ser or estar is always, you know, that you got to be thinking basically for how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar, right? If we're talking about changeable conditions like with weather, you might need estar, maybe. Yeah, like that thing about the weather, you might need estar for that. If you use a particular verb, like hopefully it's cloudy because you don't want the sun to be beating down really, really hard. Ojalá que esté nublado. Hopefully it's cloudy. That's something you can do. In? Okay. Any other question you've got before we bring everybody back or no?
No, we're just
Okay.
muddling through, but we're hanging in.
Okay, everybody muddles through at this stage. Everybody does. We just want to get you used to it because, you know, you see from Destinos, it's really common to do that. So I'm going to go back out and bring people back in. Okay. Muy bien, aquí vienen todos. Here comes everybody back. Almost there. Almost there. And we'll see what kinds of examples you have or what kind of questions you might have. Most people sound like they were doing really, really well. Bien. Ok, todos estamos. Everybody here. Magnífico. Muy bien. Ejemplos. Vamos a ver número 7. Vamos a ver número 7 otra vez. Por ejemplo, el jefe insiste en que sus empleados lleguen al trabajo a las 8 en punto. Otros ejemplos, some other examples you have on that. We're going to keep them all on this side. So you see it's always on this other half.
I had trabaje a su oficina.
Trabajen en la oficina, work in his office. Trabajen en su oficina. Bien, bien.
Se laven las manos.
Se laven las manos. Se laven las manos. And se lavan las manos. Remember, we never use a my hands or their hands. It's always the hands. It just is. Las manos. Bien. Buen ejemplo. Otra idea.
Usen sus máscaras todo el tiempo.
Usen sus máscaras.
Máscaras, okay.
Todo el tiempo. And there are a lot of phrases that people are using for masks. Generally, and máscara is mask, but usually we make this a diminutive, meaning a smaller one. Mascarillas. Mascarillas, you hear used a lot. A lot of places in Latin America like to use this. Tapabocas. Tapabocas. A tapa is something that covers something else. This could be a tapa. The screw top on a Coke bottle would be a tapa. That is how actually tapas, the hors d'oeuvre thing, got its name, because people would put a little plate, because you're standing around at the bar, people would put a plate on top with their little hors d'oeuvres here. Oh, that's how tapas, that's generally how they think tapas as hors d'oeuvre got its name. because it covered your glass because you didn't have room to set it down at the bar behind you. So you'd walk around with your plate on top of your glass. Okay. But tapabocas means it covers your mouth. Tapabocas. Okay. Bueno, 8. Cuando estamos en la autopista, esperamos que todos, we hope everybody does what?
Maneje con cuidado.
Manejen con cuidado. Manejen con cuidado. Exacto. Drives carefully. Que todos.
I have que los otros manejadores obedezcan el límite de velocidad.
Obedezcan. That's a hard verb to conjugate. Obedecer is to obey. Obedezcan. Obedezcan los límites de velocidad. Speed limit. Bien, bueno, otra idea. We could put in a que todos tengan cuidado. Espero que todos no usen sus celulares. Ojalá, yeah, hopefully. Eso es, no usen sus celulares. Exacto. Bueno, pero entienden. Okay. We have an example from one group. El actor famoso espera que el público lo entienda. He hopes that the public understands it. It might be a movie. It might be himself, you know, lo que sea. Otras ideas, other ideas with that. Que al público le guste su nueva película. We had that idea come. Que
venga a su película.
Sí, que el público venga a su película o venga a ver, comes to see. Eso es, sí.
Marilyn, could you just say vea sus películas?
Exacto, muy bien. Que vea su película. Everybody sees his film. Perfecto. Muy bien. Muy bien. Ok. Vale. Y el médico recomienda que sus pacientes se lavan las manos. Bien, sí. El médico recomienda que sus pacientes coman una dieta saludable, que tomen todas sus pastillas, they take all their pills. Sí, que otra idea.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead, Susan. Oh, I had comen bien y hayan ejercicio. So eat well and exercise.
Y hagan ejercicio. Perfecto. Okay, we've got that down on the list. Sí, que coman bien y hagan ejercicio. Recomienda que sus pacientes no fumen.
Sí.
Que sus pacientes se bajen de peso. That they lose a little
Wait.
You go down, yeah.
So
Okay.
de peso means weight?
Eso es, sí.
Oh, I never heard that.
Sí.
Oh.
Okay, bien. We'll cut you loose to take a look at 11, 12, And one example of, no, we'll add those on. Ochala. We'll add on ochala because you don't have to think anything about ochala. Ochala is always ochala. So we'll use a suggesting, sugerir. We'll use a recomienda, a recommending that somebody else does something. And we're going to use our ochala examples. Hopefully you do something. Hopefully we do something. Hopefully it does something, the weather. Hopefully the weather does something. And weather can use only very limited kind of verbs. Ooh, right? Weather can use sometimes estar. Weather can use hacer a lot. Weather might use llover, to rain, nevar, to snow, or some other kind of tougher ones that, hailing or sleeting or things like that. But, something to do with weather, some form of hacer or probably some form of estar. Okay, so we'll send you off to do some work on that. And you guys were really totally in the right ballpark with this. So you really did not need me at all. Thought we'll give you time on these. And you'll need to hit your join buttons. Aquí vienen, magnífico. Nos faltan 8 personas. We're missing about 8 more. 6 más. Aquí vienen. Here comes everybody. Magnífico. Bueno, make sure you take yourselves off of mute because you may want to interject with a question or give an example. Okay. You guys, I have to tell, I really have to compliment you guys. You are doing super well with this. And this is considered a scary bugaboo topic, but it is kind of impossible to ignore, especially considering how much you're getting into destinos, because it's like, you know, here and there, but people won't, you know, the artificial thing about learning it is that we practice lots of examples, but when you speak in normal speech, every single sentence won't have subjunctive. It's you're only going to use it when you need it, right? So anyway, aquí vamos, here we go. Let's do a share screen so we see what kind of examples you had or what kind of questions you might have come up with. And we're looking at 11, from 11 on. Te sugerimos, we suggest to you. We suggest that you do what? Wow, this one's wide open.
Take a hike.
Sugerimos que. Una idea.
Estudies español cada día.
Que estudies español cada día. Ah, sí. Exacto, muy bien. That you study Spanish every day. Bien, bueno, ¿qué más?
I've got Viejas, Antarctica, antes de que todo el hielo se derrita.
Que viajes al Antártica.
Before all the ice melts.
Ártica antes de que derrite todo el hielo. And that will be a second subjunctive. Because before. Here's the dirty secret. We're not getting into this yet. That phrase, antes de, before somebody does something, that 100% of the time goes into subjunctive, before everything melts. Derretir, is that an IR verb or an AR? Derretir, I think it's an IR verb, so it goes into an A, yeah. Bien, okay. Bueno. Buen ejemplo. Go to the Antarctic before it all melts down. Muy bien. ¿Qué más?
I had Vera la cena hoy. V-E-R-A, la cena hoy.
That you come?
Sí.
Oh, que vayas. That you come or you go? I'm not sure which.
Yeah, did you see the movie today?
Oh, sí, perdón. Okay. Que veas. Veas una película.
Okay. Yeah, veas.
I was getting hitched on a couple of things. Cine is the actual place where you go to see the película.
Oh, I see.
Cine. So you could say, here's why I was getting confused. You could say vayas al cine. You could say vayas al cine, you go to the movies, or veas una película, you see a movie. And I wasn't quite sure which one. And you can see my confusion because they both start with a ve, right? Veas, that you see, or vayas al cine, that you go to the movie theater, but cine is the movie theater, the place you go. Bueno, muy bien. Algo más, something more there, ¿sí o no?
I have compres esta acción.
Que compres esta acción, stock.
Accione, yeah, sí.
Es acción, no recuerdo. I need to look up that.
Es C-C-I-O-N-E.
Accione. Okay. Okay.
Which I looked up, of course.
I gotta look that one up. Okay.
Is it este and not esta?
I have to look up that word. You mean like a stock?
Yes, this stock. So I used
Oh.
I think it would be acciones plural. I've got to look that one up. I'll get that back to you on that one there, Karen. I'll get back to you on that one there.
Yeah, because
Game.
it's you can't look it up. It doesn't find you stock. I don't know how I found it.
Yeah. I'll look that one up because that's not a verb I use a lot or a word I use a lot. I've got to go and check that
Just
out
thought it was a
myself.
kind of advice, you might get from
Sí.
a broker. Suggest that you buy this.
Eso es, that is. ¿Verdad? True. Okay. El camarero recomienda que nosotros.
I said ordenemos un vino tinto con nuestra comida.
Que pidamos un vino tinto, that we order a red wine. Why is it pidamos? That is a troublesome verb, isn't it? Troublesome verb because it is pedir.
It's to ask for. Okay.
And this is why we start with yo. You would think pidamos, or you would think, well, anyway, we have to start with pido, P-I-D-O, pido, yo. Then we ditch the o. Que pidamos. Pedir, you know what, we'll come back to that next session. There are some verbs that are troublesome. I don't want you to get hung up on them. You would think that you would keep it as P-E-D, but it's P-I-D. Okay, so anyway, pedir. Bueno, ¿qué más? What else?
Could you use ordenar for order?
Could you use ordenar? Yeah.
Okay. Ordenemos el pescado.
Ordenemos el pescado. Most people will just use pedir or tomar. Tomar, right? Comer, que comamos, que tomemos, que ordenemos. Sí. But for ordering in a restaurant, pedir is by far that's the winner thing. That's what everybody uses. That's what people would normally think of, would come into their minds right away. Okay. Bueno. Ojalá que tú, hopefully you
quedes seguro y saludable.
Quedes seguro y saludable o en buena salud, in good health. Bien, ok, ¿qué más? Ojalá que tú tengas a clase.
Viva la buena vida.
Que vivas una buena vida.
Yes.
Sí. Perdón. I've got to stay on that same line. It's going down to the next. It's going down the next bar because I've run out of space there. Bien, bueno, sí. ¿Qué más? Ojalá que tú.
Que tengas feliz cumpleaños el 5 de mayo.
Que tengas buen el cumpleaños.
Cumpleaños el 5 de mayo.
Que tengas un cumpleaños el 5 de mayo.
Cumpleaños.
Birthday.
Okay. Que te diviertas el 5 de mayo. That you have a good time. Okay. Que te cuides, that you take care of yourself. Like you tell people take care. Bien. Ojalá que nosotros.
Okay, here we came up with a question because I used the yo form and I said, podamos dejar de usar máscaras pronto. But my compatriot said it's podamos. And I
Podemos.
use, but
Podemos
so
usar.
why do you not use the yo form?
Because it's
And
a
make
stem
these.
changer. Because it's a stem changer. Because poder is a stem changer.
But we just did it with
I know.
pedir.
I know.
So it's like,
Yeah. You say, yeah. Yeah. Poder is a stem changer. And just as those things stay, go back to the original vowel when they're outside the boot or the shoe.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you about that rule. Yeah, that still happens. So it won't be podamos, podam. And here's why not. Well, no, I'm not going to say here's the reason why not, because I don't know the real reason. But here is what I think. Too many vowels, too
Yeah.
many vowels. We don't do it for nosotros ever, so why would I do it there? So no, that podamos is not a thing. No se puede, no se puede, you can't. No se puede.
But why was it pidamos?
Because it's a stem changer that's an IR stem changer. Oh, the
okay.
IR stem changers are the bottom of the barrel, crummy. Nobody likes these verbs. We'll take a look at those next week because you know what, to be honest with you, they're a small category of verbs, but yeah, you know, there are some that are going to come and bite us in the butt. So we'll take a look at some of those next week.
So the
It's good
ER
these are coming up.
ER and IR stem changers don't change the stem.
Exacto.
They just
They
go
don't.
back, they just go back to the regular verb.
Well, they go back if they're nosotros. If they're
Yeah, right.
nosotros.
Nosotros.
Because nosotros falls out of the boot or shoe. But IR stem changer, IRs that are also stem changers, they do goofy things. So we're going to look at some of those because there are some that you're more likely to see than others. Yeah. And those are the ones we'll look at. La semana que viene. Next week, we'll take a look at those. Okay. How about the weather? Ojalá que.
Question.
Fría.
Que haga fría.
En fría.
Que haga frío. Que haga frío. Hopefully it's cold.
Ojalá
O
que
fresco. You know,
Cools
maybe
off.
cool. See? See? Okay. But with that, we have to use an haga, right? A lot of those weather phrases use hacer, a lot of them. So if we're going to use the hacer phrases, ojalá que haga frío, ojalá que haga fresco, ojalá que haga calor, we have to use haga. Yeah. So any of those phrases we use haga. How about rain?
Oh, I have it. Ojalá que no llueva mañana.
Que no llueva. Que no llueva. Ojalá que no llueva. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Que no llueva. Because llover is an ER verb, so it'll get the ending, right? Sí, eso es.
Okay. This is probably wrong, but I have ojalá que tengamos mucha lluvia esta monsoon.
Oh, sí, se puede decir. You can absolutely say that. Que tengamos mucha lluvia esta temporada de monzón. Sí, sí. Muy lógico.
So
Hopefully
tengamos
we have a
is
lot
okay.
of rain. And the word for the noun rain is lluvia.
So if I wanted to say the rain stops, what could I say? La lluvia detenga? From detener? I couldn't figure out.
Oh, qué buena pregunta. What a good question. Que deje de llover. Dejar de is to stop doing
Right.
something. And the way to say that, the first thing that would come to my mind would be que deje de llover. It stops raining.
Okay.
Dejar de is to stop doing something.
Right.
Que deje de llover. Eso es, sí. Qué buen ejemplo.
I wrote el clima esté fresco este verano. Could I
Sí.
call that I just said the weather is.
Sí. Sí. Esté fresco. Sí, se puede. Sí. Clima is just another way to say tiempo. Climate, weather, the general weather conditions. Clima, sí, se puede. Sí. Muy bien. Or maybe you want it to start raining, right? Que empiece a llover. You know, when you get to that point at monsoon where you just want it to rain, so that it breaks, que empiece a llover. Sí se puede. You can do that too. Buenos ejemplos, ¿no? Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta o no? Any other questions there?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sí, sí.
Going back to what Keith's answer on one of his, like, couple questions above, right? Yeah. Tengas and cumpleaños. Why do I want to put en in front of el Cinco de Mayo?
Because when you say on a date, it's just el and the date.
Okay.
Like I'm going to work on the 6th. Voy al trabajo el 6 de mayo.
Okay.
Yeah. When we say on with a date off the calendar, it's just el and the number and the month.
Got it. Okay.
Eso es. Buena pregunta.
Mi
Okay.
cumpleaños es el Día de las Madres.
Ah, bien.
Fin de semana.
Muy bien. Muy bien. A ver. Bueno. Okay. Shoot. I'm running out of time for my destinos. Yikes.
You got 2 minutes.
I was hoping to squeeze that in. But you see, you really feel better with this if you take your time and you just do the practice. Yeah. So I'm sorry I've gone overtime on that. Okay. Do you want me to still assign a destinos, a new one for next week? See? And I'll find a way to join. I'll like pick some highlight things that might be of interest because I know you like the walkthroughs and I don't want to totally skip that. But one thing I want you to notice is, yeah, the title itself for the one we had last week. The title that we had itself for the one last week was Si supieras, if you only knew. And that's a past subjunctive. And you might say, how do you get to supieras? You get there. Past subjunctive uses preterite verbs to form its past subjunctive. So that's why we're not going to get into that. I'll point out what they are, but we're not going to get into practicing why they happen, because for that you have to have a deep, deep understanding of the various past tenses and be super comfortable with them. Super, super comfortable. But just knowing that si supieras means if only you knew is okay. Si supieras comes from saber, if only you knew. But see, it's expressing the idea of if you knew, but in fact, you don't. If only he knew his wife was cheating on him, but the poor schlep doesn't know. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like that. Yeah. So subjunctive always indicates the we don't know, the we're not sure. It's kind of the twilight zone of activity when you think about it. It's the twilight zone, right? But you'll see how we're moving past our little events here. Vamos a sacarle a Roberto de la excavación por fin. We're going to drag him out of the excavation finally. We'll start to find out a little bit more about the troubles that are going on within the family. We'll find out a little bit more about Luis. See, ¿Tienen preguntas? Do you have any burning questions about those episodes before? We'll lead off with those next week.
So we should watch 33 and 34 for next
We're
week?
gonna, 34 éxito, I gave you last week.
So
We'll look at
35.
éxito and reunidos. We'll look at those through. We'll look at 34, éxito, which means success. And éxito looks like it means exit. It does not mean exit whatsoever. It means success. And reunidos, reunited, back together. Reunidos. So you can kind of guess a
That's
little
30
bit of,
So is that 34 and 35 we should be looking at?
34 and 35. And I'll send you the links for both of those together. Éxito and reunidos. Bien. And definitely make sure you've got the subtitles, clicked on. They generally speak slowly enough where that's not a huge problem, but have the subtitles turned on so you can see some of those coming through. And keep an eye out for any subjunctive that might come up. And if you see a verb that looks totally wacko, weird, just those are things we'll freeze and bring up when we lead off. And we'll lead off with class with that next week. ¿Vale? Bien? Excelente. I'm not going to give you extra work on that. We're just going to do the watching and the walkthrough. So take little notes, and whether there are cultural things that you're not quite sure of or vocabulary that you're not quite sure why they use, just take some really good notes on those 2 episodes. And that is what we'll focus on for next week. And we'll leave the subjunctive for a while because you're probably going to see some subjunctive thrown in the mix as we move along. Okay, ¿está bien?
Sí.
Está bien.
Excelente.